Biomed, Nexus. Daily updates, your essential biotech, medtech, and pharma recap. No noise, just what matters. TLDR. The Iran war's impact on pharmaceutical supply chains is accelerating. Evonik announced a 15% price increase on amino and keto acid products used in pharma manufacturing, citing rising energy, raw material, and shipping costs. Strait of Hormuz shipping remains approximately 90% below pre-war levels. Indian API exporters are rerouting through alternative corridors at air cargo rates up to 350% higher than pre-war levels. Generic drug margins are under severe pressure. A group of biotech executives sent a letter to President Trump recommending former FDA cancer regulator Dr. Richard Pazdur as the next FDA commissioner, according to Biospace. The search for Macary's replacement is underway. 2 gene therapy safety signals emerged this week. Regan XBO shares slumped after serious side effects in its Duchenne muscular dystrophy gene therapy trial. Separately, STAT reported that scientists linked a boy's brain tumor to the viral delivery system, AAV, used in a gene therapy treatment, underscoring a theoretical cancer risk that the field has long debated. The Pharma letter reported that BMS's Eliquis, apixaban, is on course for one of the largest single-asset revenue collapses in pharmaceutical history, projecting a 98.6% global revenue decline by 2031 as patent protection expires. Executive takeaway: we should have been covering the Iran war's pharma supply chain impact earlier, and we are correcting that now. The conflict, which began in late February, has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, disrupting 10 to 20% of global pharmaceutical commerce, per the Council on Foreign Relations. For 3 months, the industry relied on inventory buffers and cargo rerouting to avoid shortages. That buffer is thinning. Evonik's 15% price increase on pharma inputs is the first concrete cost pass-through from a major supplier. India, which supplies approximately 18% of all API facilities serving the US, is rerouting exports around the Gulf at dramatically higher costs. Air cargo rates on India to West corridors have surged up to 350%. Generic manufacturers, which operate on margins so thin that a third of oral medicines in shortage are priced below $1 per unit, are the most vulnerable. The USP warned that petroleum-derived inputs are essential to the production of key starting materials, so rising energy prices could further compress margins. This is not a theoretical risk anymore. The price increases are arriving. Meanwhile, the fight over who leads the FDA is already underway. Biotech executives want Pazdur, the legendary cancer regulator who left the agency citing Macary's leadership. And gene therapy, one of the most promising modalities in medicine, just got 2 safety signals in the same week that will sharpen regulatory scrutiny. Read full analysis, what to watch, generic drug pricing. If the Strait of Hormuz remains closed and energy costs stay elevated, more suppliers will pass costs through. Generic margins cannot absorb sustained increases. Watch for generic discontinuations and shortage notifications. FDA Commissioner? Search Pazdur is the industry's choice. Whether the White House agrees is another matter. Kennedy said the search will proceed with urgency. Gene therapy, regulatory response. The AAV-linked brain tumor case and Regan XBO Duchenne side effects will likely prompt FDA review of gene therapy safety monitoring requirements. Watch for updated guidance or advisory committee discussions. ASCO, 16 days, Revolution Medicines, plenary session, May 31st, supply chain and geopolitical Iran war. Supply chain disruptions are now hitting pharma. Directly, what's happening? The US-Israel war in Iran, now in its 3rd month, has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global shipping corridor through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply and 10 to 20% of global pharmaceutical commerce passes. Endpoints. News reported Tuesday that Evonik, a major supplier of pharma-grade amino and keto acids, raised prices 15% effective immediately, citing rising energy, raw material, and shipping costs caused by the conflict. The supply chain impact: Strait of Hormuz shipping remains approximately 90% below pre-war levels, according to Think Global Health. Global air cargo capacity dropped 79% in the Gulf region in the early weeks of the war, with Indian air cargo rates surging up to 350% in certain corridors. India supplies approximately 18% of all API facilities serving the US and produces upwards of 35% of the total US API supply, according to the USP. Many of these exports historically transit through Gulf air hubs, including Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha, all of which have been disrupted. The generic drug risk: generic pharmaceuticals operate on extremely thin margins. According to the USP's 2024 Annual Drug Shortages Report, a third of oral medicines in shortage are priced below $1 per unit, and almost half of injectables in shortage are priced below $5. Even small increases in transportation or raw material costs can make individual products uneconomical to produce. Bioprocess. Insider reported that some countries, including the UK, are expecting medicine shortages within weeks. The US has been insulated so far by inventory buffers. The White House ordered HHS to build a 6-month stockpile of 26 essential medicines in mid-2025. But those buffers are finite. The clinical trial impact: FESI, a data science company, found that 7% of global clinical trials have been impacted by Middle East disruptions, with the biggest effects on drugs for lung cancer, breast cancer, heart failure, and multiple myeloma. Trials in Turkey, Israel, and Egypt have been particularly affected. Policy and regulatory biotech leaders pitch Pazdur as next FDA commissioner. A group of biotech executives sent a letter to President Trump recommending former FDA cancer regulator Dr. Richard Pazdur to lead the agency, according to Biospace. Pazdur served as director of the FDA's Oncology Center of Excellence for more than a decade before leaving earlier this year, citing Macary's leadership as his reason for departing. He is widely respected across the pharmaceutical industry and oncology community for accelerated approval innovations and patient-focused regulatory decisions. Whether the White House considers a former career FDA official, particularly one who left because of the previous commissioner, is an open question. Kennedy said the search for a new commissioner is already underway. Clinical and research updates. 2. Gene therapy. Safety signals in 1 week. 2 concerning gene therapy safety stories emerged this week. REGENXBio. Duchenne. Gene therapy. REGENXBio shares slumped after the company reported serious side effects in its gene therapy trial for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, according to Biospace. The details of the adverse events were not immediately disclosed, but the market reaction signals significant investor concern about the program's viability. Brain tumor linked to AAV vector. Stat News reported that scientists linked a boy's brain tumor to the adeno-associated virus, AAV delivery system used in a gene therapy treatment. The finding underscores a theoretical cancer risk insertional oncogenesis that the gene therapy field has debated for years but rarely seen confirmed in practice. The authors noted the risk still must be weighed against the potentially life-changing benefits of gene therapy. Executive impact. These 2 events will intensify regulatory scrutiny of gene therapy safety, particularly for AAV-based approaches which are the dominant vector in the field. Lilly's recent acquisitions of Colonia, lentiviral in vivo CAR-T, and Orna, circular RNA in vivo CAR-T, use different delivery technologies, but the broader gene therapy sector will feel the overhang. The FDA, now without a permanent commissioner, will need to decide how to respond. Patent cliff watch Eliquis faces 98, 6% revenue collapse by 2031. The Pharma letter reported that BMS's Eliquis, apixaban, is on course for one of the largest single-asset revenue collapses in pharmaceutical history, projecting a 98. 6% decline in global revenue by 2031 as patent protection expires. Eliquis generated more than $20 in combined revenue for BMS and Pfizer, co-marketer, in recent years. The analysis underscores the scale of the patent cliff facing large pharma and the urgency driving the M&A wave we have tracked all year. Biogen takes tau Alzheimer's drug to Phase 3. Despite Phase 2, Biogen announced it will advance diranersen BIIB80, a tau-targeting antisense oligonucleotide, into Phase 3 trials for early Alzheimer's disease, despite the Phase 2 CELIA study missing its primary endpoint. Biospace described the decision as prompting cautious optimism. The company cited signals in secondary endpoints and biomarker data as justification for the Phase 3 decision. This is a high-stakes bet. Tau-targeting therapies have been one of the most elusive goals in Alzheimer's research, and advancing after a Phase 2 miss carries significant risk. The week ahead, May 19th, RBC Global Healthcare Conference, New York. Late May, Commerce Section 232 report on medical devices expected. May 29th, FDA RTCT public comment period, closes May 29th to June 3rd, ASCO annual meeting, Chicago. May 31, ASCO plenary, Resolute 302, full data, RVMD. June 4th, Jefferies Global Healthcare Conference, New York. Red, full analysis, Biomed, Nexus Pro, Institutional Intelligence Brief, the Iran War, and Pharma. What you need to know. We have not covered this story previously in the newsletter because the direct impact on US pharma was initially minimal. That changed this week when Evonik became the first major supplier to pass costs through. Here is the current situation. Timeline: the US-Israel military operation against Iran began in late February 2026. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz in response. A ceasefire was briefly pursued in April but has not held. The conflict is now in its third month. Direct impact on pharma: 10 to 20% of global pharmaceutical commerce passes through the Middle East. Council on Foreign Relations. India, which supplies 18% of US API facilities and 35% of US API volume, relies heavily on Gulf air hubs and the Strait of Hormuz for exports. These routes are now 90% disrupted. Cost pass-through. Evonik raised prices 15%. Oil above 100 barrel is increasing petrochemical-derived API costs. Air cargo rerouting adds 350% premiums on some corridors. Generic margins, already thin, are being compressed further. US buffer. The White House ordered a 6-month stockpile of 26 essential medicines in mid-2025. This provides a temporary cushion, but the buffer is being drawn down, and if the conflict persists, shortages could emerge in Q3 or Q4. Clinical trial disruption: 7% of global trials impacted. FESI, with lung cancer, breast cancer, heart failure, and multiple myeloma most affected. What to watch? More supplier price increases, generic drug discontinuation notices, and FDA shortage notifications in the coming weeks. The Section 232 tariff framework, which was designed to incentivize domestic manufacturing, takes on new urgency in this context. Gene therapy. The safety question returns. The gene therapy field has always acknowledged a theoretical risk of insertional oncogenesis, the possibility that inserting genetic material into a patient's cells could disrupt tumor suppressor genes or activate oncogenes, leading to cancer. This week, that theoretical risk became more concrete. The stat-reported brain tumor case is the most direct evidence yet of AAV-mediated oncogenesis in a clinical setting. The REGEN-XBIO Duchenne adverse events add to the safety conversation, though the specific nature of those events has not been fully disclosed. For the industry, the implications are nuanced. AAV-based gene therapies used by Novartis are Zolgensma, BioMarin, Roctavian, Sarepta, Elevidys, and dozens of clinical-stage programs will face heightened scrutiny, but the risk must be weighed against the severity of the diseases being treated. Duchenne muscular dystrophy, spinal muscular atrophy, and hemophilia are life-threatening conditions with limited alternatives. The regulatory response will be critical. Without a permanent FDA commissioner, the agency's ability to issue updated guidance or convene an advisory committee is uncertain. This is exactly the kind of safety question that requires clear, decisive regulatory leadership. Patent Cliff Tracker, the big three drug company, status projected erosion, Eliquis BMS Pfizer multi-billion-dollar franchise, patents expiring Nanate, 6% by 2031 Pharma letter, Keytruda Merck world's best-selling drug, LOE 2028 significant, Humira Abvai former bestseller, biosimilar erosion ongoing 86% plus discount on Trump-X. These three drugs represent tens of billions in combined peak annual revenue that is eroding or will erode within the next 5 years. This is the structural driver behind the M&A wave, 84B, in Q1 per Dealogic, and the pipeline urgency across the industry. Catalyst calendar, May 2026. Forward date, event tickers, May 19 RBC Global Healthcare Conference, New York, multiple late May commerce. Section 232 report on medical devices expected MDT, BSX, SYK, ISRGMA, 29 FDA, RTCT public comment period, closes end of May 29 to June, 2 ASCO annual meeting, Chicago, multiple May 31 ASCO plenary, Resolute 302, full data RVMD June, 4 Jeffries, Global Healthcare Conference, New York, multiple late Q2 Lilly Found IO, T2D filing under CNPV if program continues. LYTBD FDA, Permanent Commissioner nominee. Expected NA June 2026 Takeda. CEO transition, Julie Kim, take July 1 Medicare. GLP-1 Bridge Program, launches LLY NVOQ3 2026 TIVA, Emalex, close expected TIVA July 31 Section 232, Pharma tariffs, effective, large companies. Multiple H2 2026 Fundio. T2D regulatory action, expected LOY H2 2026 Lilly, or Kelonia. Close expected LOY H2 2026 Ajax, proof of concept. Data expected LOY H2 2026 Revolution. Medicines, CNPV NDA filing, expected RVMD mid-2026 Lilly, retatrutide, phase 3 obesity readouts, Triumph program. LY's CEP19 Ultragenics, UX1 on Lum PDUFA Sanfilippo Type A gene therapy, Rare Sept 29, Section 213 Pharma tariffs effective, all other companies. Multiple Deck 7 Lilly Investment Community Meeting LLY Visit the Pro, Hub Read, full article, limited ASCO Week sponsorship slots available, May 29th, June 2nd. Reach 65,000 plus professionals during the biggest oncology event of the year. Learn more. Is your company listed in the Biomed Nexus directory? 2,104 companies across 14 categories. Claim or upgrade your listing sponsorship slots for 2026 are limited. See packages and pricing. New Biomed Nexus signals weekly sales intelligence for life sciences BD teams. Learn more